Well, hello and welcome to a special edition of the Ramon Foster Show, brought to you by the Get-Go Cafe and Market. He is Ramon out in Hendersonville, Tennessee. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports downtown. And Ramon, we waited it out. We kept hanging on. Yeah. Where is this Mad Canada news? Where is it?
We're all waiting. Everybody was hoping he was like my shirt that I have on. It's a NASA space shirt or SpaceX. They really wanted him catapulted into the atmosphere, but he's still in Western Pennsylvania, maybe on vacation. DK, we don't know right now, man. So that was our delay, whether it was retention or whether it was the boot.
The catapult.
Yeah, the medieval catapult. We didn't get either one of those, DK, so far.
But here's the thing, and I've got a lifetime in covering these types of situations, and this applies to all sports. It's not an NFL thing. If you're going to get rid of an NFL coordinator or assistant coach or special assistant or whatever it is, you do it in the first week, or you don't do it at all. You don't string someone along and prevent them from getting other opportunities, which we've seen moan around the league.
Yep.
Yeah, they're everywhere right now. Those musical chairs are already turning.
Yep. And what's so unique about that, too, it's the same way as players. You see players most times say, hey, if you're going to cut me now. That's why most teams, if they're moving on past their franchise quarterback or there's, a guy that they have a whole lot of respect for, hey, we're going to release you now so you have better opportunities to get signed elsewhere. That's
Derek
what
Carr.
You're saying. Yes. Yes, 100%.
Perfect example. Yep.
Over and done with it. And right now what you're looking at in the Matt Canada situation is, as you said, DK, there's no traction. There's no information. There's no anything. And the other side of this, too, is Coach Tomlin did his presser, what was it, Monday or Tuesday? Far as head coaches speak. I think most of them did across the league whose seasons ended. Right now, what is his availability moving forward?
He's done for 3 months. He will not speak again to the media, barring some sort of extraordinary one-on-one opportunity, until the NFL owners' meetings. I kid you not. And he'll sit down at a table at those things, and he'll talk to reporters. But that's 3 months from now. And I'm going to peel back the curtain here a little bit for everybody. Again, from the reporting standpoint, think about this. Canada's got another year on his contract. The only two people who have to even discuss his status are Tomlin and Canada. Tomlin is not about to walk over to the media relations office, knock on their door and say, hey, put out an announcement that Canada's staying. Why would he do that? Canada's already under contract for the coming year. It would actually be kind of insulting to Canada to do that, right?
Yes, it would be. And to your point, that's something that and you mentioned this to me as we spoke about this yesterday, as I was waiting in a limbo. You said in Coach Tomlin's presser, he said his decision, which means if Mr. Rooney has no say-so in coaching moves, if nobody on that staff has any say-so as far as whether they prefer, it's a Coach Tomlin decision. But he also puts himself in a box when it comes down to standing on that hill as far as production and the way this offense looks too, DK.
Yeah, just to jump in on something you said, it's not that obviously that Mr. Rooney wouldn't have say in it. I think that what happened is the reason that Tomlin blurted out the words "my decision" at the press conference was that he's been authorized to make it. In other words, he's sitting there with Art Rooney and Art just says to him, Mike, it's your decision. Okay. No, do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like whichever way you go, I'm going to bless. Okay. That's how this works. It's the other direction. And that's how Tomlin can say that. It's not that Art couldn't overrule him or whatever, but in this case, he apparently won't. For the head coach to say that out loud at his press conference in that context, I thought was pretty powerful.
It is, man. But of course, we as fans, we as people who cover this team, also just look at the most glaring things when it comes down to what this offense looked like. Second half of the season, you got to kind of give it to him, DK. in the mindset that it looked better. They had a little bit more flow. But you also said to yourself, you're playing lesser than opponents. No Lamar Jackson when it came down to Baltimore. The way the Cleveland Browns looked towards the end of the year, they were a broken team, and you were supported mostly by your defense too. I'm just naming off two other games, and of course you throw the Raider game in also. And the reality of that is Derek Carr basically is cut from his team now because of that game. He lost his starting job, so he wasn't playing at a great speed and tempo. There's a lot of questions surrounding the retention if they do decide to keep him. I mean, the point total as far as offensive points scored this year, rookie or not, it went down. They went from, if I'm not mistaken, DK, they went from 21st in the league last year in 2021 under Matt Canada to this year, 26th in the league as far as points scored. Yes, there was some transgression of moving past quarterbacks and stuff.
Offensive points, yeah.
Offensive points as far as production. But the overall yardage, DK, that slipped some this year, did it not?
It did, but that might be the one area. Look, if they're keeping Matt Canada, as it certainly appears that they are, they've done this, I believe, in large part to make sure that Kenny Pickett has continuity.
Yeah.
I just don't think it'd be more complicated than that. You can make a case between Kenny and then the running game having gotten better, which they did.
So there's so many different layers, DK, that I have written down I want to go through when we get to the bigger segment. But this is where I'm at as far as the decision in which we know right now. There is no decision or whether Coach Tomlin's even thinking about it. And the fact that he's not a media leak type of guy, I think there's one guy in particular we know that if he gets some news, Glazer will probably be the one guy you say, well, yeah, that's his friend, okay? If there's ever a leak, it may come from that direction, or Glazer may know somebody else inside of the organization. But this is what I say: if you're kept him through the week, players have actually met with him in that offense. Also, he's potentially met with them, and everybody in the building have had their exit meetings with inclusion of Matt Canada. And what I will also say is this: the fact that you've delayed or waited to this point, yes, it's disrespectful to Matt Canada if you're gonna cut him later, because it's like, well, we could have got ahead of this right now. But if that's the case, I don't think there's anybody in-house that they're going to elevate to that position of head play caller too. That's my issue with it, DK, because some of these guys are about to start getting plucked from other staffs that we may think are better OCs.
You see, that's the other part of this that I don't hear nearly as often from people, which is that there are OCs becoming available right now. So if you were the Steelers and you were looking to make a choice or a change, you would want to do that immediately because Mike Sullivan isn't that guy, in-house. He doesn't have the play calling pedigree and so forth. So, yeah. You know what we're trying to say here, everybody?
Buckle up.
I mean, this isn't going. It doesn't look like it's going to change. And to anybody who says, by the way, well, who cares about disrespecting Matt Canada? Just go ahead and fire him anyway or whatever. Please explain to people, Moan, why this isn't just about Canada. Why you have to conduct yourself a certain way.
You know what, DK? We'll discuss that one in the second segment because I need some time on that one, man.
All right, we will. Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show. Moan, you got to carry yourself a certain way. It doesn't matter what you think of the actual coach. There's just a certain protocol to it. It's an unwritten rule.
It is a lot of the time, man. You know, I've said this time and time again, like that coaching circle is small. I got friends of mine that are in high school level, college level, and NFL level. And the one thing I've heard all of them say, never burn a bridge, never cut somebody off. The line is always open because you never know who knows somebody. You never know who can put you in connection to get you your next job. So to your point about how coaches have to conduct themselves, the releasing of Matt Canada in a very nonsensible way will be horrendous for coaches, for the organization, because there's a level of trust when it comes down to the way you're going to take care of guys. Like if a guy is bad, and you'll see that it is bad, then you know what? There's justification in firing and letting go of people. But if the word get out that, hey, this guy's shiesty, you work with them, but don't work with them for long. That ruins the product that you have as a team, as an organization, and as a person too. I've had conversations with guys that knew some of my friends that was in that coaching world, right? And one guy in particular that it came back to me and said, man, you got to talk to your guy. Because the way he was at the coaching seminar, he'll never work in this profession if he's that smug. And I was like, dang. Like, that's how it goes. And that guy knew another guy, and they actually ended up coming together at another gig on the college level, at a D1 college level. So it is thick as thieves. It is a decorum when it comes down to how you operate the hiring and firing and retiring. I mean, the hiring, firing, and retaining of coaches too. So this Matt Canada situation, to me, kind of hinges itself on, well, it was young, it was different, it was new, and I want to give him another shot. It's the way this feels.
You know, the coaching fraternity, among other things, among other universal traits that it comes with, these guys go year to year.
Yeah.
With very, very few exceptions. Now, Canada was on a 2-year contract.
Right.
So he's going to be the exception. There are coordinators who do get longer term contracts.
Yeah.
But almost everybody else that you're talking about, everything is year to year to year.
Yeah.
And that's the reason they insist on this. What would the change mean? What would the change mean? Or sorry, not the change, keeping Canada.
So, and that's the other part of the
That's really what we're probably start talking about here.
So let's just be sensible in what we have going on here, okay? New quarterback, new offensive line, running back relatively young, new wide receiver that you got to figure out if he's number one. You have a stud tight end, and you got a bunch of other moving parts around this group. The reason to keep Matt Canada, if I'm Coach Tomlin, I say to myself, the second half of the season, it got better incrementally. You saw flashes of what it could be. Understanding what your rookie quarterback is, considering he didn't start the first half of the season, considering he had a concussion that kept him out of the game, now it's on you in a full offseason of knowing going into 2023, Kenny Pickett is your guy. This is your opportunity to craft an offense designed for him, designed for George Pickens, Pat Fryermuth, finding a way for Deontay, and a run game. I had a conversation with a guy on that team right now, and it really brought a sense of reality to me about where we were and where they are on this O-line. And he asked for my assessment. Man, what'd you think of him? And I broke it down. Man, I thought this guy, broke it all the way down to him. And I was just like, but I don't know what's going to happen to your left side of the offensive line, whether they keep and move Dan Moore around, whether, Dotson will continue to be there. And it kind of hit me in the face with his response. He was like, Mo, you guys probably didn't come together in 1 year the same way that you're expecting us to. And I was like, you know what? That's fair. And yes. I think the difference between judging their OL and judging ours at the time was we had more older guys around us too, in a sense, to kind of grow up, right? It wasn't all at once. It was, I was there first, a couple guys got moved up, and then Marquise comes in. And then a year later, another guy comes in. And then another guy comes in. 2 years later, Al comes in, right? So it was time. And it was just a sense of, okay, maybe there is patience. Did they get better, the OL, at the end of the season? Yes, they did. Will not deny that. And I think that's the way Coach Tomlin would probably view Matt Canada moving forward into 2023 if, DK, they decide to keep him. And this is the other thing. After 1 year, we saw this happen in Jacksonville, right? As far as Trevor Lawrence go.
Right.
We saw a young guy last year lost out of his mind. This year, Trevor Lawrence kind of came into who we thought he would actually turn into. They're in the playoffs. They won the AFC South. And they had to actually get coached up. He had a whole year knowing that was stability. I think that's the way you're looking at Kenny Pickett, saying into this second year, Matt Canada, yes, you're under the gun if we decide to keep you. But do I want to change offenses from a young rookie just after 1 year to where it seemed like he was finally catching his stride in the latter part of the season? So, all signs to me kind of point to you keeping Matt Canada. If that's the decision where you say, I don't need that many moving parts. It's worked. I like the O-line coach. I like the wide receiver coach. The play calling, you better outsource somebody to help you with the management of this game and not look like you lost when it comes to competing in NFL matchups.
Well, let's peel the curtain back from your perspective and what you know about how coaches work with coordinators, because everything that I've heard from inside those walls on South Water Street is that the head coach loves the way his offensive coordinator conducts business. Now, I'm going to say that to fans, and they're going to go, what is this? And I'm not sure that they'd be wrong, okay?
Yeah.
Because that means nothing compared to, what he should be doing, calling plays.
Yeah, and that matters too. The level of respect. No matter how we feel outside of that building, the level of respect that a guy like Matt Canada can retain from his group, it does matter. The way they effectively work in practice, the way practices go, just the day-to-day idea of where they are. Like, whatever happened at the bye week, I'm sure Matt Canada had a play in it too. You know what I'm saying? Whether there was a challenge to him that, hey, you got to grow up and look what you got in front of you. This isn't college ball anymore. These are the 1% guys in all of the world when it comes down to NFL football in general. And so if he had taken those proper steps, if the mentality of, look, yeah, I'm struggling as an OC, but you're not going to see it. I know what I want to do. Do I have time to perfect that as an offensive coordinator in this league? That's up to Coach Tomlin to see. And if that's the case, and he said that about how he conducts himself, that lets you know, at least mentally, he trusts that. And again, the production has to follow from that, DK. That's the biggest thing I think we're all seeing. And for our fans, too, that listen to us, my question is this. If you do get a new OC, what are you expecting from the young guys that you have at control of this offense?
Yeah,
I think that's huge.
I mean, that might be all of it, Moan.
Yeah.
It just might. It might just be a case where Tomlin says, listen, we all just watch the offense progress. Okay, and by this one, we're talking partially about the O-line, but not all that much because Pat Meyer had those guys going. But he had them going with a playbook that they understood, okay? Somebody asked Cordell Stewart over the past week on his Twitter account about saying they said something to him along the lines of, a new playbook, it's not a big deal. And Cordell comes back and says, it is a big deal.
and see,
it is a big deal.
As far as the playmaking, the play calls, it is. But you also say the first
it's a new playbook. Remember that even this one wasn't. When Canada came in, they basically took a variation or the lingo or something from Randy Fichtner, so that Ben in his 18th year wasn't going to have to learn a whole new lingo and all that other stuff. I mean, imagine what would that have done for you guys in your
Oh my gosh! If I'm being honest,
go ahead.
I told you this before. The playbook never changed.
I know, but you could take it for granted then, with all due respect.
You could take it for granted. And I think this transition, and this was one of our things, even when Munch came in, we had to tell Munch we're not really changing our calls. If we're going right, we're using the R word that we're used to. If we're going left, we're using Lenny. Like, that stays the same. You kind of craft the offense around them. And truthfully, from Bruce Arians to Todd Haley to Randy Fichtner, our calls never changed. The names didn't change. It does matter. It does, DK.
Now, I guess if you're listening to this right now, you could be talking over top of us and saying, all right, let the new coordinator come in and use the same calls and use the same lingo.
But the way that offense was crafted, let's go from Randy to Matt Canada in their first 2 years to where Matt Canada is now. You got to gradually move out of that, because there's a bunch of guys that were there that learned that old offense. Like Deontay is one of those guys. Pat Frymuth was one of those guys that learned that old offense. And yes, you change some variations of routes and concepts and stuff like that. But in totality, I think this is why, DK, as you talk more about this, why you got to almost retain this guy. This is as fair a shake he's going to get.
See, I'll tell you what. If I put
I'm with you,
if I put a gun to my own head and said, "Listen, let's just go ahead and examine all the various positives of bringing Canada back. I can come up with a couple. Okay.
Yeah, you could.
And I could even say something like, let's say that, getting really inside football here or whatever, but let's say that one of my issues, which it was with him, are the route trees for the wide receivers. That they're so unimaginative. They're not even trees. They're like half of branches. Okay.
Yeah.
And you say, listen, we've got the whole summer. We now have film and verification of what it is that Kenny likes, what it is that Freiermuth likes, what it is that Johnson likes, what it is that Pickens likes. Okay, let's rework these, but let's sit in the room with the wide receivers coach. Let's sit in the room with such and such, other individual. Let's even have a defensive mind in there to say what is it that gives you trouble. What would you not want to defend if you were facing the Pittsburgh Steelers, and get a lot of different voices in there?
Yeah, I'm
trying.
I think. Honestly, and most people, and this is the thing, we're not advocating, well, at least I won't, or we're not celebrating the idea that a guy's going to lose his job. I think that's fair. We're not celebrating. At least I won't, because that's a tough game.
All right. I won't either. I won't either. The truth is, I've never had a negative interaction with him. He clearly doesn't like dealing with reporters, but I couldn't care less.
I mean, most people that know they're not good don't like to talk in public, do they?
Then there's that.
Okay, there is that too. I mean, if you're walking around here like Shanahan, you probably can't wait to talk to the media, or McDaniel in Miami when he has his offense rolling. But this is where I'm at also with what you breaking it down by saying sitting down with folks. I'd almost tell you that's about as fair shake as he'll potentially get in this league. And if they do decide to do that and it's still not a good product in 2023, that's when you know it's for certain that his time is done as an OC. And you also get Kenny with more of an understanding of the NFL, timing of releasing throws, because I think that is the biggest issue of all of it, DK, is you can't ruin this young quarterback this early in his career, because that can go ugly. I've seen Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield have these issues. We're looking at Zach Wilson have these issues right now. Trey Lance, if he never gets on the field due to injury, we're looking at Justin Fields in Chicago going through these issues. It's easy for you to wash away a young quarterback in this league when they don't get their footing underneath them. One thing Cincinnati has done, they've stayed steady with Joe Burrow. They created pieces around him, but as far as his operation from him to his wide receivers, that has stayed steady.
When we come back, the only segment that matters.
Oh.
Welcome back to the Ramon Foster Show, and the only segment that matters. It's brought to you by the Get-Go Cafe and Market, where quality is at the core of every menu item. Moan. 3 expert chefs. Count them. 1, 2, 3. Fine-tune every detail so that every sub, burger, salad, wrap, drink, and app is crafted for craveability. Order your favorite entry at the Get-Go Cafe and Market today. Better believe it. Moan, yeah. I understand you've got a certain friend of yours prepared to ask today's Hey Moan.
Yeah, this one comes from a real close friend of mine that I know.
Oh, yeah?
Man.
Who's that?
Yeah, my alter ego, Nomar Retsoff.
Nomar Retsoff, or as you put it during the break, and I almost quit doing this show forever, that's my name backward. It's like, thanks. I never would have figured that one out. That's my name backward.
This one comes from Nomar Retsoff. With that being said, let me step away from the mic the way you do it on the submissions. Hey, Mo! From my understanding, if Coach Tomlin decides to keep Matt Canada as the offensive coordinator and it doesn't go well for him in 2023, is Coach Tomlin due the respect to continue to see this group grow up, transition into a new era with the Pittsburgh Steelers, considering you saw it in front of you and it wasn't good and you decided to stay with it? DK.
That's Nomar's tough, man.
Because that's a fair question. Coach Tomlin
Yeah, one of the things that happens when you're in management and you make moves under you when things
Yeah.
don't go well, you end up running out of moves
Yeah.
that you're free to make.
Yes, you do. And
You got to start working out at some point.
They do have to start working out. And this is my thing. Coach Tomlin always tells us what football is our game. Winning is our business. Something similar to that, correct?
Yes.
If we've seen in 21 and 22, the offense get worse as far as points being scored, and you decide to run him back with that individual and it's still not as good, then that was a you decision. That was somebody that you said, I'm okay with making this and running it back, and it didn't work out. So for that reason, do you lose a little bit of that trust? Do you lose a little bit of that emotional stock? Because more times than not, it's in hindsight, or it's theory of the moment when it comes to what you actually did. The famous Janet Jackson song, right? What have you done for me lately? I think that matters more in today's NFL. Why? Because the player has changed. The media scrutiny has changed. The eyes on what the product is. You have these services now that will break down your team better than you can sometimes. They hire these analytic people, right?
Yes.
So with that being said, in this era in which Coach Tomlin's going into with Kenny Pickett, and I want to call it the Kenny Pickett era, right? If he's the guy.
You can now, yeah.
If he's the guy, is he due the respect to see this through? Meaning, he saw Max Starkson era, he saw my era with Ben, and now he's seeing this new O-line and their era kind of grow up. And I think it's kind of fair to put that pressure off on him this time around, because there are options out there as far as play calling, as far as trying to get Kenny together, as far as this team not just competing to be third in the AFC North, as far as this team also being in a position to not just be one and done in the playoffs, DK. There has to be steps being made. There has to be very competent steps when it comes down to your performance and your management of your coaches and expectations too. That's why I say if you do have a right above 500 season again, or you don't make the playoffs, will the front office and Mr. Rooney allow him to be the head coach in 2024? I don't know that answer right now because we got to see that product. But if that seat has not ever been hot, I think it decides to go in 2024.
Well, that kind of what you're talking about here brings me back to something from the last segment. You mentioned that this head coach has only has only so many moves that he can make, but also that this one was, and I'm quoting directly here again, my decision.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, if Mr. Rooney says to him, Mike, it's your decision, that can come with a double-edged sword.
Yes, it can.
Okay. He's saying, I'm not the one keeping this guy.
Right.
I watched him. He sucks.
And sometimes people can tell you stuff like that to see how dedicated you are to the cause. Oh, it was your decision? Guess what? I actually wanted to see if you were going to be smart enough to get rid of them. I do that to my kids all the time. You got it. What you going to do? What you going to do? I know my answer already. Not saying that I'm not putting words in Mr. Rooney's mind or his mouth, but I'm saying, DK, how many times have you done that with your kids?
Oh, yeah.
So, or one of your employees or your teammates at work. So what you going to do? And you wait on the decision to be made, right?
Let's see what you say. Let's see what you say. Yeah, it's, you know what? There's a part of me that likes to default to trusting the process because I don't know everything that's going on. I don't know a fraction of everything that's going on behind the scenes. Even you, when you were back there, when you were part of it, you didn't know everything that was going on in every room, in every office, in everybody's minds. And there's a part of you that I'm sure that just kind of, defaults to thinking, listen, there's got to be a reason for this. This is not a stupid man.
No,
okay?
No.
These are people who are, for the most part, successful, highly successful individuals who are at the top of their craft just by being in the National Football League. So you'd like to think, all right, there's got to be something here. There's got to be a reason they'd want to keep him other than, those tired narratives about how I just don't like to make changes or wants to be stubborn and show that he's right. I mean, I'm sure that's some of it.
Yeah. Go ahead. I had I know a coach that made a decision to hire a certain offensive coordinator before. And in hindsight, I ended up having a conversation with that coach, like, why'd you hire that guy? You know, what was the conversation behind it? And the coach ended up getting fired behind that decision. And what's crazy is at the time he told me,
what do you mean by that? Fired behind that decision? I didn't understand.
Because that team was bad after he hired that coordinator. And he said to this day, his wife tells him, you got fired because of your decision to hire that guy.
Oh. Well, it's part of your job. You can't have it both ways.
No.
You can't say, for example, I want the decision. I want the authority to be able to hire and fire my own coaches. Yep. I want the authority to have final say in the NFL draft. And then when things don't go well, say, well, it's a team effort.
Yeah.
Okay. Ultimately, it's not. Ultimately, it's you.
But I think our point, DK, is that though, like you can get the green light to make those decisions, and if you already, the seat's not hot. You know, he does have another winning season, but if you make a decision that's glaring to everybody else that there needs to be a change, you can put yourself in that same boat as that guy on the way up the river too. I've seen this. We've all seen this, right? We've also seen coaches also sell out for guys before. Hey, front office comes to you, and I've had this conversation with coaches in the NFL. You need to let go of this guy, that guy, and that guy. And the loyalty won't allow them to. But guess what happens to that coach that says, no, I'm not. I like my guys. We're good. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, you're gone too then. Bye.
You're gone too. So I asked the question at the beginning, is he due to respect to have another go at it if Matt Canada doesn't evolve and, you know, have a better offense? And we'll figure out what better is throughout this offseason, right? But where does that put Coach Tomlin if he said, to your point, my decision?
When we do our next show, I'd like to attack this idea as to what constitutes a fair goal, a fair and reasonable goal for this football team in 2023, because that's also part of setting the standard. You know, meaning on a year-to-year basis. I understand standard Super Bowl, blah, blah, blah. But I'm talking about something that's reasonable and fair for 2023. I think that'll be a fun conversation. Ramon, let's do it again, man.
Yeah, I'm here if you are, DK.
Yeah, I am.